Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Hi, thanks for being here. Real quickly, I do this every few videos. If you're new here, if you've started Buddhism years ago and then stopped for whatever reason and you're coming back to it now, this is perfect. This channel is for you. If you're just starting out, this channel has a lot of material just to get your practice kick-started. You don't have to dive into the most nitty-gritty meat right away. This is a study channel, so we cover all the bases of Buddhism with a special focus on the Buddhism for this era, the Lotus Sutra Buddhist practice. And our mentor, our teacher, our foundational teacher for the correct practice of Lotus Sutra Buddhism, as Shakyamuni taught it, is Nichiren. He's quite a scholar, and I am now reading I have read the entire Gosho Zenshu, in case that's your exposure to it, from that translation. Several scholarships, schools, and organizations working together to put together the Gosho Zenshu, but that's mostly Fuji School inspired translations, and there are other schools, obviously, and what I'm reading now is from the, let me get this right, it's a long, contorted group. The English Translation Committee consists of professors and experts from Tokyo Risho Junior College, Risho University, Kokoikuji Temple in Tokyo, Chikoji Temple in Tokyo, Myoanji Temple in Tokyo, Reverend Ryokyo Michizuki from Daiyoji Temple, the Senpukuji Temple, Josein Temple, Secretary General of NOPPA, which is the Nichiren Shu Overseas Propagation Promotion Association from Tokyo, and the Honryuji Temple in Haichijoji-shi, Tokyo. So there's all kinds of scholarship in this this collection of translations, not necessarily tied to the Fuji school. The Minobu school is the start of Nichiren's propagation is from Minobu. The split with one of the 6 senior disciples to Fuji was a different school. Anyway, I think it serves us well that a great many of these translations are of the same writings of Nichiren, but not all of them. Some of them are not in the Gosho Zenshu because they're held in collections of this other sect of Buddhism, and therefore we get to read more translations of Nichiren's great scholarship, and perhaps with a slightly different point of view, a different bias, if you will. But fundamentally, the teachings are in there. And since 3,000 years ago, Shakyamuni exhorted us to study and look for the meaning in the words, not get too attached to the words themselves, right? Albeit in our era, we're so attached to every single thing that that's not an easy thing to do. So it's nice to discuss it, and that's why by discussing it, we hope to together get to a foundational meaning of how to correctly practice Buddhism. That's it. What was I looking for? Oh, I just wanted to show. Yeah, there's plenty of Gosho to go around. So there's some 330 some videos just in the playlist Nichiren Gosho, which is all Zenshu. And I don't know how many we'll end up with in this branch, but I've put it in a different playlist just to be able to differentiate. So it says Nichiren Gosho 2 or Nichiren 2. What does it say? I don't recall now. Anyway, it's distinctly different. There's going to be links at the end, you know, where the little cards come up. It'll say Nichiren 2 TOO, clever. But you'll be able to differentiate the translations that way. And also, this way we get to read more guidance from our mentor. Now, as I said earlier, if you're new to this channel, or you're new to Buddhism, understand this channel is completely dedicated to the study of all of Buddhism. And as such, if you go through the playlist or you use the little search area on the home page of this channel, you can search within the hundreds and hundreds of videos on this channel for specific things, maybe like Daimoku or Myoho Rengekyo or karma. What is karma? No matter how long you've been practicing, sometimes reinvestigating the meaning of those words is of quite some value. Now, I apologize in a way, some of the videos on this channel are 15 years old. So, you know, we learn by doing, right? And so now I think that when I do these talks, I'm a little bit more, my language has developed, and perhaps I'm more clear now. I don't know that that's true. But if you see things that seem inconsistent, please let me know. That's what the comments, one of the reasons the comments are open on all of these videos, or to email me. Also, I want to say there's a website, threefoldlotus.com, which you'll see links to in the beginning and end of these videos. That will take you to a free resource site. There's a core learning materials page on that website that has 60 some buttons that are all labeled with typical questions like the 3 time periods, the 5, there's a lot of 3s and 5s and 9s, odd numbers in Buddhism, and it's hard to remember what they all mean, especially at first, like the 10 realms or 10 worlds. Those are all typical things you might want to dive deeper into if you're just starting out. And there's some more complicated stuff in there, like the skandhas and so forth, for those who are seasoned practitioners, but now are ready to take a deeper dive into the scholarship of Buddhism. Also, there's a bookstore where you can get books by myself, either solely written by me or by me and a collection of extant texts grouped under certain headings, titles, right? There's also, and especially if you're re-entering into Buddhism or just starting out, I have a mandala of Gohanzon store. So you can get yourself a mandala as soon as you're ready. There's no reason why you should have to wait. That's authoritarianism and it's not Buddhism. Get yourself a mandala so you can start focusing your mind and instantiating Buddha in your mind. There's no reason you need to wait to do that, right? All right, with all that said, let's continue with, right now we're in the midst of the Treatise on Protecting the Nation, and we're on chapter 3, Reasons Why the Collection of Passages on the Nembutsu Slanders the True Dharma. We all know, if we've studied it all, even if you're just starting out with Nichiren's doctrine, Nichiren doesn't spare any punches when he's talking about the competing teachers in his in his time that are teaching Buddhism, albeit some distorted version of the teachings, which they've been handed down to for hundreds of years. And so they may even unconsciously be following incorrect doctrine. Nichiren, of course, is not going to let that happen, or is trying not to let that happen, and redressing the issue, and with a tremendous amount of scholarship showing the quotes and phrases from all of Shakyamuni's writings. He is, after all, the founder of Buddhism. So if you're not following his direction and his teaching, then why are you calling what you do Buddhism? You can't pick and select the parts you like and then add your own flavors and organization to just bolster your idea of Buddhism. That's not how Buddhism works. There is a way to practice. It's well taught over 50 years of Shakyamuni's life. The culminating teaching is the Lotus Sutra, and that's just evident if you study it all. However, in our era, we tend to be lazy about study, and so we just want to be told what to do, and that's authoritarianship. And it's unfortunate, but knowing that, that's what this channel was originally set up to do, is to say, hey, let's study together. Let's make it easy on ourselves, right? And I read through these word for word, and I interject with some clarity of my over 45 years of practice. And hopefully that helps us all gain particular insights for our own practice. I'm not telling you how to practice. I'm showing you authoritative dialogue, scholarship, and so that you can get those little aha moments and inspiration that builds your confidence in invoking Buddha in your mind, right? It's that simple. There's one method, the one vehicle, Lotus Sutra teaching, and that is to be present and receive the invocation of Buddha in your mind, Myoho Renge Kyo. It doesn't get any simpler than that, but we're also complicated beings. So when you start feeling doubts, start not knowing exactly, you're not so confident that you're invoking Buddha in your mind, then that requires some study. Because as soon as you study any of Nichiren's doctrine or the Lotus Sutra or Shakyamuni's teachings, you're going to get it because it's so obvious throughout. And when you feel confident, you chant with more focus. And so you succeed putting your mind more and more in that state, that Buddha state, right? So here we go. In this chapter, I should like to explain the reasons why the collection of passages on the Nembutsu is said to slander the true Dharma. And I've just recently got questions from people who said, well, look, why does he hammer on the Pure Land Sutras all the time, which is part of the Nembutsu of teachings, right? The chanting of Amida Buddha, supposedly preparing you for the Pure Land after this life, after death, which is complete nonsense. It's not Buddhism. Although, yeah, those sutras were taught early on because they were teaching people who didn't have the capacity to understand how to change their mind, how they saw the world. The Pure Land, in the scope of all the teachings, is simply a perceptive change of the land we're in, not someplace we go to after death. That's all. Buddhism is about this life and how to live it maximally to our complete potential, unfettered by attachments and the things that bring about our suffering, our emotions, right? So, here he goes. Question. What is your proof for accusing Genku of slandering the true Dharma? Genku, if you were with us last time, is a contemporary teacher of Nichiren's who's pushing this Nembutsu practice, right? So based on the collection of passages on the Nembutsu. So his answer, Nichiren says, reading through the collection of the passages on the Nembutsu, we see that it slanders the true Dharma. It divides all the teachings of the Buddha's lifetime into two. One group called the Gate to the Holy Way, Difficult to Practice Way, or Miscellaneous Practices, and another group termed the Gate to the Pure Land, Easy to Practice Way, or Correct Practice. Okay, so Buddhism is full of classifications of what goes where, right? So far, these are just labels, so let's see what he means by those labels. The first wholly difficult miscellaneous group includes the Flower Garland Sutra, the Agama Sutras, Hodo Sutras, Wisdom Sutras, Lotus Sutra, Nirvana Sutra, and Great Sun Buddha Sutra, whereas the second, pure, easy, correct group refers to such teachings as the Nembutsu, or chanting the name of the Buddha of infinite life, preached in the triple Pure Land Sutras. So here's the division, right? Genku, in the footsteps of his predecessors, reads that the Lotus Sutra, along with all these other sutras, does it for smart people who are already, there, so to speak, in the understanding of Buddhism and how to practice. It's not for the general populace. It won't do you any good because, quite frankly, none of you, the laity, the people of Japan, they're not scholarly monks. They're just everyday people like you and I. And so those fancy teachings, they don't work for us. This chanting of Amida so that after you die, you can go to this beautiful place. Doesn't that sound like religion? Yeah. Buddhism isn't about that. Buddhism casts that away as like Santa Claus. Stop thinking about that. It's about how you're living your life now, in this moment. You don't need to be worried and stressed and have anxiety and all this stuff, because that all derives from your delusion that everything's permanent, static. Everything's always in flux. You need to understand the world from a different point of view. And Buddhism is the answer to achieve that. That is Buddha-ness. And you need to invoke it in your mind right now so you can live this life fully, unfettered. Right? So to say you need to chant this fake Buddhas, right? Amida is a created personage of Shakyamuni in his expedient means, his facilitating people understanding how the mind works. Amida isn't an actual person, or an actual Buddha for that matter. It's a personage, a person in a story indicating a certain type of mind, a clarity, a guidance counselor, if you will. Shakyamuni's a real human who attained Buddha. And so ever since he did that, he's been trying to teach people how they could do the same thing. Not to follow some mysterious story, but to actually do it in this life. So nothing about after you die is in Shakyamuni's teachings. The life-death the cycle of birth and death that we talk about in Buddhism is a moment-to-moment thing, right? 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. Not actual extinction. There's no mind then. So nothing's going on. Buddhism is about your mind, your attitude, and your intent. So Nichiren continues. Criticizing the shortcomings of the wholly difficult miscellaneous category Genku insinuated in the collection of passages on the Nembutsu that of the ignorant people in the latter age practicing sutras in this category, merely 1 or 2 or 100 practitioners, or 3 or 5 or 1,000 practitioners might be able to be reborn in the Pure Land at most. It wouldn't be very successful. Maybe not even 1 out of 1,000 practitioners might be reborn there. He also definitely considered those who practice these sutras to be bandits, villains, heretics, or men of evil opinions and evil outcasts. So, what do human beings do when they want to convince you that they're right and everyone else is wrong? I mean, as a course of habit, they demonize the other thing, whatever it is. Right? Those people, they're bad people. You don't want to follow them. Now, I hear you going, well, Nichiren's doing the same thing. No, he's not, because it's not the value of Nichiren as our mentor in practice isn't that Nichiren has a different opinion. That's not the value of Nichiren. The scholarship of Nichiren is the value of Nichiren. In other words, Nichiren never says and never promoted himself. And by the way, if you're wondering about different sects of Buddhism, this is the root question to ask yourself. Do you practice or deify Nichiren? Because we don't practice Nichiren Buddhism. I know that label is put on a lot of stuff, even some of these translations. But understand this clearly, because this is absolutely critical to your practice. Nichiren never called himself out as a Buddha, or he never called himself exceptional. He's constantly, in all of his letters, referring to himself as not just an ordinary man, but not an especially bright man. There's no ego attached in Nichiren's teachings. His teachings, his doctrines, are all about Shakyamuni's teachings, specifically the Lotus Sutra, and the way that he comes to that conclusion, which he shares with us in these documents, is from Shakyamuni's own words. Nichiren invents nothing. He just clearly states the obvious, that if you bother to look into it, the answers are already there. Shakyamuni made this clear, and he quotes, and he quotes, and he quotes. Why does he quote? Because they're not Nichiren's words. He wants to show everyone that the answers and the correct practice are very clearly outlined and stated by the founder of Buddhism. So Nichiren, in his day, is looking at all these other sects, and he's really reading as a monk, going to different temples and reading their documents and seeing quite plainly how they're deviating for their honor, for their egos, for their position, for money, but not for enlightenment. It's all about controlling the populace. They become servants to the shogunate or the emperor or whoever's in power, the landowners, right? So when somebody says, claiming to be a Buddhist, like one of these learned quote-unquote monks, that those teachings of Shakyamuni's are only practiced by bandits and evil people, right away you should have like a huge question mark. What? This is why it's an assault on Buddhism, because these people are taking the words of Shakyamuni, not Nichiren, the words of Shakyamuni, and adding their own to it, putting them in different order, and outright calling them bad teachings or bad people that practice those teachings. How is anything that Shakyamuni taught about Buddhism contrary to Buddhism. They're the ones being contrary, right? And this is what Nichiren's doing. He's like, hello? If you're going to be lazy and not study, let me tell you what the study would say. Let me help you understand why what you're doing is incorrect by Shakyamuni's own teaching. Not me, Nichiren. I'm not inventing anything here. I'm just showing you the scholarship so that you can make your own confidence and determination in practicing correctly, right? So let's get that out of the way, because I know it comes up every time. I hear it in the back of my head. When you hear these accusations from other teachers, if you're unlearned, if you haven't spent some time learning, read the Lotus Sutra even, if you do that, if you read maybe some Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, Lankavatara, other Mahayana texts, and then you read Nichiren, and then you read the Lotus Sutra, every time you read Nichiren, you'll go, oh, yeah, I see what he's pointing to. See, that's all Nichiren does, is pointing. How can you say that when this? How can you say that when this? Right? This is Nichiren's great contribution to Buddhism, why he is our mentor. So we don't get befuddled by all these other mixed messages, that we focus on the teaching of Shakyamuni, right? Stating the advantages of the pure, easy, correct group, Genku declared that all of those ignorant people in the latter age who practice sutras in this category, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, will be reborn in the Pure Land. This is the evil doctrine that slanders the true Dharma for many reasons. Because when Genku says, all of you will attain the Pure Land if you practice these sutras, he's talking about a Pure Land that you attain after death. Completely contrary to the mission of Buddhism. That's the note here that isn't being explicitly said, but expected for you to understand. This is why Genku's teachings are so violating the spirit of Shakyamuni's Buddhism. The main core effort of Shakyamuni was to bring all sentient beings to enlightenment. We chant it every day when we do Gongyo. It's that last part. Remember, I pointed this out before, and I did a whole video about it. But I think it bears repeating. You know, you got your liturgy book. Go to the end of part C, and you will read this part. Zuyo shokado ise shuju ho mai jisa zenen igaryo shujo tokanyu bujo mudodo sokujoju bushin. In each moment, I think to myself, how can I help others attain Buddha? That's this life. In this life. That's what Buddhism is about, making this life enlightened. Right? I have a so-so English translation. It's Bertrand Watson. Don't like his method of translation. But here's the last paragraph. It's what we just read. At all times I think to myself, how can I cause living beings to gain entry into the unsurpassed way and quickly acquire the body of a Buddha? And we've gone over bodies of Buddha, right? Manifest, reward, Dharma. That's the whole triple body Buddha experience, which is also why Buddha is not something we experience after death. It's the body. It's in this samsaric life where Buddha-ness can be experienced. That's the whole point. To experience Buddha in our minds. That's the reward. In this manifested body, we experience the Dharma. It's all about living this life to its fullest potential. It's not an after-death kind of thing. That's up to religion. And besides which, obviously, anything you can promise everyone to achieve after death can never be proven or disproven, because you're not going to be there. This is a critical point, because this is the whole argument that Nichiren is making with all of these other sects. They don't understand the primary goal of Buddhism. Or they do, but they actively preach against it, because if everyone thought, well, it's my Buddha experience, I can experience it just on my own, I don't need to be part or stamped with a part of this temple or part of that group in order to attain Buddhahood. There are reasons for Sangha, but this is a personal practice. It's a self-practice. That's what the Lotus Sutra is all about. And if everybody starts to know that, well, then I'm not so important. The teachers, it's ego, it's vanity, it's power. If people think they can only get to this state of Buddhahood through me, then I've got them for whatever reason, right? But Buddhism is a self-practice. Everyone's empowered with the ability to awaken Buddha in their mind right now. That may even be tougher, right? And this is why Shakyamuni himself said, this is hard to understand and difficult to stick with, difficult to believe. How can I have so much power in my life? We're so obsequious. We want to give the very essence of our life to other people, put them in authority. That may seem like a relief. Whew, I'm not responsible for all that crap. But what are you doing? You're relegating your life to suffering. Like you'll never know because you don't have the power to. That's completely opposite. That's why Buddhism is so singular, so different than this other habit, laziness of other sects, other non-Buddhist sects, other religions. They all make fantasies and life for suffering. And this is why the Four Noble Truths, the first thing Shakyamuni said, all life is suffering. Now do I have your attention? What does he say right after that? All your suffering is because of your craving, your clinging to stuff, thingifying everything. If you can stop the formations, mind, mental formations of these clinging, craving actions, you, not somebody else, you now, not somewhere, somewhen else, can get rid of suffering. You can attain Buddha. In Four Noble Truths, he takes people from their delusion that all life is suffering. No, it isn't. You're only suffering because you're forming these illogical delusions of attachment to static thingness, your obsession of ownership. And if you want to stop suffering, having stress, anxiety, so on and so forth in this life, let that go. That, my friends, when you let it go, when you actually experience everything as a flow, as non-attainable, non-possessible, then it frees you. You go, oh, I didn't lose anything. I don't have to fear losing anything. I'm in it. It's in this with me. I'm not really gaining. It's been here all along. And everything is momentum, movement, energy. Whew. liberation from that delusion that controls all your thoughts, right? Attitude, intent. Right here and now. And he spent his lifetime teaching how to recognize that, what that looks like, what you need to understand in order to solidify your confidence in letting go of possession and renewing experience in every single moment of life. Buddha-ness. It liberates, it sloughs off all of that stress and attachment and fear that's all based on ownership of stuff. Whether it's a piano or a person or an emotions or a relationship, all of it is craving, clinging to. None of that disappears when you stop craving and clinging it. It's simply not causal to your stress about it, because your stress is the illusion that you somehow own it. You're all here together. Stuff, people, relationships, they just are. We swim through this huge cosmos of experience. And seeing it from the proper perspective is Buddha. Yeah? And we all have the capacity to see that way. But it takes effort. It's not our samsaric norm. Right? Because everything is manifested of a desire to manifest. So the very instantiation of this body, so that it can emerge the mind, is based on a desire to be. Unfortunately, that switch doesn't get turned off once we are being. So we have to work to train our minds to allow being while we see clearly the nature of being, of all phenomena. Oh, right? It's like getting your head above the fence and understanding the entirety. Getting on a ladder in the middle of a cornfield that you can't figure out how to get out of. You can get up the ladder and you go, oh, I see the shape of this cornfield. I see where the edges are. I see clear light and blue sky over there. I just need to be determined to get through all this corn in this one direction, and I will get to liberation. Right? I've used that example years ago. So let's go on. Stating the advantages of the pure, easy, correct group, Genku declared that all those ignorant people in the latter age, that's you and I, by the way, who practice sutras in this category, 10 out of 10 will get there. Sure, you can say that, because none of us can investigate it, right? So, next question. Dividing the holy teachings, I got to think of a different word, because that has so much charisma. It's not holy. The translation really annoys me. It's not that these things are imbued with some kind of magical spiritual power, which is what holy generally is accepted to mean in Western civilization, right? What he's talking about is sacred is another word like that, right? We see that a lot in Buddhism. But those are all English translations that have a cultural bias attached to them, because that's the way Western thought has been inculcated into thinking because of religion. But Buddhism is not religion. It's simply an accurate telling and experience of life, the life process. Nothing mystical here. So to call it holy teachings, really, it's just a default word, and it's not an appropriate one. So let's see, what can we change that with? Dividing the actual teachings, the what's the word academics use all the time? the authenticated teachings. Yeah? Dividing the authenticated teachings preached during the Buddha's lifetime into two groups of the authenticated way and Pure Land, the difficult to practice and easy to practice, or the miscellaneous and correct practices, insisting that of the two, the authenticated, difficult, miscellaneous group of teachings is unsuitable to the time and capacity of the people, is not a new doctrine established by Genku alone. It's also not factual. This is the same doctrine also preached by the three Chinese masters, Duanlan, Dan Luan, Dao Cho, and Shantao. Again, it was not an arbitrary idea of the Chinese masters. It stemmed from Bodhisattva Nagarjuna's commentary on the 10 stages. If you call Genku a slanderer of the true Dharma, are you not indirectly accusing Bodhisattva Nagarjuna as well as the three Chinese masters of being slanderers? Right? So this is a question Nichiren, Nichiren is writing the question himself, right? He knows the arguments because he is in debate all the time. He knows the arguments he's going to get from other masters or teachers, right, quote unquote. And so they're learned. They know the history of Buddhism. So they posed a question to Nichiren, not that Genku is correct, but they say, well, if you're going to call him incorrect for those reasons, then, those reasons have been around since Nagarjuna. Are you calling him, a liar, an enemy of the true Dharma, the true teachings? Answer. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna and the three Chinese masters divided the sutras preached in 40 years or so before the Lotus Sutra with criteria such as difficulty in putting into practice, but their division did not include the Lotus Nirvana Sutras. However, beginning with the publication of the collection of passages on the Nembutsu by Genku, such terms as, quote, difficult to practice way, end quote, employed by Nagarjuna and the three Chinese masters were used in a different sense, putting the Lotus Shingon Sutras in the group of difficult to practice or miscellaneous practices. Not knowing this error made by their teacher, Genku's disciples believed his false doctrine to be correct and propagated it all over Japan. Consequently, the Japanese people were all convinced that the Lotus Shingon Sutras were unsuitable to the time and capacity of the people. Which, if you read the Lotus Sutra, you see that that's completely opposite. But see, the reliance on ignorance is profound. Teachers do this all the time, right? They take advantage of the ignorance of the people. I'm looking for a term here to see, because he keeps repeating it. Problematic for me, so I want to see. So the Lotus Sutra is the Hokekyo, the lotus flower. But he groups the Lotus Shingon, and I'm not sure what he means by, because the Shingon is a sect, right? And it's a sect that's a true word sect, so it has nothing to do with the Lotus Sutra directly. So I'm not sure why he keeps and Tendai esoteric, the Shingon school, criticizing them of the supremacy of the Lotus Sutra. Nichiren called both the esotericism of Toji Temple and Tendai esotericism the Shingon school. Yeah, so Lotus Shingon, I guess it's just a reference to the time period. For the purposes of clarification, we'll just say Lotus Sutra. I think if he was going to have a hyphen there, whoever translated this should be Lotus Nirvana Sutra. That would be more accurate to the period. And now I just looked at the time and I see how I'm running over. Where am I? Furthermore, Tendai and Shingon scholars, here we go, who desired worldly honors and profit, spoke ill of their own Lotus Shingon Sutras as unsuitable to the time and capacity of the people in order to cater to the whims of the public, reinforcing in effect the evil doctrine of the collection of passages on the Nembutsu. Again, understand evil meaning misdirecting you, misleading you away from your own Buddha-ness, your own ability to invoke your Buddha. That's evil. And that's a Western word. But understanding that that's what's meant by the word evil, not some exterior force, right? That's badly influencing you. This is other men influencing you. Guided by fleeting self-interest, these so-called scholars broke the vow sworn in the meeting of Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddha of many treasures, and the Buddhas manifested in the worlds all over the universe, stating that they would ensure that the, quote, that the true Dharma endures forever in this world, end quote, as stated in the 11th chapter of the appearance of the Stupa of Treasures, the treasure towers, and quote, be spread widely in this world, end quote, as stated in the 23rd chapter on the previous life of the Medicine King Bodhisattva, end quote. This is from the Lotus Sutra. And see, this is what I was saying earlier. Nichiren isn't just saying, you're wrong. Nichiren is saying, if you read the sutra, it calls you out as being wrong. Shakyamuni's own words defy what you're claiming. So, as Nichiren says, they're just doing this for their own gain, for their own empowerment, their own political pride, their honor. But not honor based on truth, honor based on manipulation. Yeah? These scholars motivated all living beings to commit the atrocity of cutting off the tongues of numerous Buddhas manifested in the worlds all over the universe throughout the past, present, and future, with which these Buddhas touched the Brahma heaven to attest the vow to be true. Very colorful description of going against the actual teaching, right? This abomination solely originates from, as stated in the 13th chapter, quote, encouragement for upholding this sutra, and, quote, monks in the evil world being cunning, world of anger, crooked, and thinking that they have attained what they actually have not, so on and so forth. Possessed by demons, they fail to understand the Buddha's expedient means to preach the Dharma in accordance with what is appropriate, end quote. So now he's going to go to another question, but I hope you understand why I take such time to rehash certain things, because then when we go on reading, there it is, very clear to see in the words. But without my forays into understanding these things, you might read through those words and just hear a story and not really engage with what Nichiren is actually putting in plain view, right? All right, so we will continue in the next one. I think we got a good ways in there. This is a long treatise, so there'll be a lot of these dialogues, but I really want us to get the merit of Nichiren as our mentor here. He never makes an argument out of his personal passions. In fact, he talks about himself in this duality. The plain man trying his best to do what is right and correct. And because he's so passionate about, look, it's obvious in all of the works that I've studied, the proper way to do this. How could there be so much confusion? And as he's exiled for it, threatened his life for it, exiled twice to basically to go and die so they don't have to hear his noise anymore. He understands that in the Lotus Sutra, where Shakyamuni talks about someone, a bodhisattva will appear in the latter age that will take this on and help proselytize the true teachings at a time when everyone is distracted into various different ways away from these teachings, being polluted mentally with wrong thinking and just sinking deeper into malaise, stress, anxiety, suffering. Complete opposite of what Buddhism is about. And so Nichiren identifies with that character, that personages that Shakyamuni identifies this kind of behavior. And he identifies with Bodhisattva Superior Practices. He doesn't say he's a reincarnation of that Bodhisattva. What he says is he's adopted that attitude. He's representative of that expedient means, that story. Being a humble monk, he is enacting a behavioral way in concert with that conceptual bodhisattva. He doesn't say he is that, ever. And I'm adamant about that because there are still big organizations out there and sectarian schools that keep wanting to deify Nichiren. Nichiren himself would be greatly insulted at that. He would see it as an accusation by people who don't understand Buddhism, quite plainly. Okay, enough of rant. We'll continue with this. In the meantime, thank you so much for being a part of this. Like, subscribe, share. Don't forget about the podcast. You can download the podcast if you don't mind listening to my voice and, rehashing this stuff for yourself while you do other things. I understand that. It's helpful. Anything that keeps you engaged, right? The website, lots of answers. It's all free. The bookstore, if that helps you to have, I love something tangible to read. I don't like reading things online. It means I use a lot of printer ink. But and don't hesitate on getting a mandala, a true mandala of Gohonzon inscribed by Nichiren's hand. That's the only thing I promote, because he's our mentor. I don't want anybody else's voices cluttering up my Buddha-ness. Yeah? Those of you on Patreon who are supporting this channel financially, wow, you're major bodhisattvas. Thank you. Those of you who use the paypal.me/Sifu Sylvain, that's a direct link to PayPal. Or, I get some percentage from the sale of books and the mandalas. I try to keep it minimal because I'm not looking to, amass a fortune and build a whole. I have thought in the past that we're on 15 acres here, and I've thought of putting up some little huts or what are they called? Those Mongol yurts, just to have like a destination for us to meet in person. It's a dream, something that I would love to do, but boy, economically, I just don't have the opportunity to do that. Who knows? We never know what the future will bring, if I'm ready for it, right? In the meantime, take care of your health, be kind to yourself and others, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.